Jambo Rafiki, I'm Elizabeth from Kasiwa82 and I hope you are doing really well. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back. For today's TBR Tuesday, I'm going to do a wrap-up of my recent reads. I will put a link up in the cards as well as down below to the TBR video that shows these books, and interestingly enough, I've actually gotten through some of those TBR books. You know, that's interesting for me because I tend to be a mood reader. As always, everything I talk about will be linked down below, so there'll be a list of the books I discuss, and I will be talking about them from my least favorite to my most favorite in this stash. So first, let's talk about On Lighthouses by Jazmina Barrera. This book was highly recommended to me by a friend and gets really good reviews on Goodreads. It's a nonfiction book on lighthouses, but I found that it wasn't so much nonfiction as much as a memoir. So the thing to know about me is that I'm a sailor and a navigator, and I love all things lighthouses. I visit them, I read about them, I use them as a navigation aid, so I was really excited to read this book. Unfortunately, it did not work for me at all. I was not interested in the memoir pieces, and a lot of this book is memoir. And the way the author structures the book is that there's five or six lighthouses that she uses as chapter breaks, and she talks about the lighthouse. And there's a little bit of the history of the lighthouse in there. I liked the connection of how we have used lighthouses in literary fiction. So for example, with the first lighthouse story, there's a little bit of a reflection on how Virginia Woolf uses a lighthouse in her book To the Lighthouse. But there just wasn't enough of that. I was looking for either more of that, kind of how do we use lighthouses in our storytelling, or more of a nonfiction book about lighthouses. And this one had just too much memoir for me. I don't know the author, and I just didn't care. The other thing was the writing style. It felt really clunky and choppy, and I couldn't tell whether that is how she had written it or how it was translated, because it was translated from Spanish. So this was a miss for me. About 97 pages through, which was about halfway through the book, I DNF'd it. So 1 star, not for me. It might work for you if you're looking for kind of a light nonfiction with kind of heavy on the memoir side of the house. It might work better for you there. The other book, again, this one didn't really work well for me either, was Maids by Katie Skelly. And this is a graphic novel, and it's about two sisters who work as maids for this wealthy family. Now, let me show you the back so you can see. One of the things that really annoyed me about this book was how the noses are drawn. I just kind of kept getting distracted anytime I saw a nose in the picture. The art itself is okay. I mean, it's cute, right? So it's kind of this very sketchy art style, which I'm okay with. But there just wasn't enough meat in this. It's a really slim novel. And when I got to the end, I realized that this was based on a true crime event that took place in France in, I think it's the 1930s. And maybe the author was trying to show the backstory of these two girls who were involved in that true crime. They were kind of raised in a convent. They were working as maids. Their mom was an alcoholic, so kind of they had a troubled childhood. But there just wasn't enough meat on the bones of this particular story. And I would actually love to read either a better fleshed out story about this event or a nonfiction about this event, but this in itself just didn't work for me. So I gave this one 2 stars. The next on the list of this selection is I Will Judge You by Your Bookshelf by Grant Snider. So this is kind of got this really cute cover that's got a cutout. So you look at this woman and her bookshelf, and when you open it up, you see what his bookshelf looks like. So I think this would only work for bookish people. You know, I don't know that anybody else would really care about this. It's essentially 2 to 3 page comics about all things books. So things bookish people think and care and, you know, think about. So I think, so the problem I had with this is I read this in 2 sittings, and I would not recommend that. I think this would work better read kind of like the way the Sunday comics work in newspapers. Read a couple of the comics, put it aside, pick it up a week later, and then read another couple of comics. When I read it in 2 sittings, it was just kind of too much. And also the comics in the first half of the book are much better, I found, than the comics in the second half of the book. So if it sounds interesting to you, I would certainly recommend picking it up. I mean, I liked it. It was kind of a fun, whimsical, you know, the art style in here, while not necessarily, you know, wonderfully illustrated, is certainly whimsical and colorful. And if you are a book person, which you would be if you're watching this video, I would recommend picking it up from your library and getting a sense of, you know, it's a fun, fast read, although that's not how I recommend you read it. And I gave this one 3 stars. Next up, we have an Ali Smith. Now, Ali Smith is an author that I feel that I have all her works. I have them all on ebook as well as audiobook from the library, and I'm convinced she's an author I'm going to love. I'm sure I'm not alone in this, where we are convinced we're going to love an author, so we get their whole backlist and then we're not quite sure. I read this for the first time the year it did release, and this is my second reading of this book. Now, again, I'm not a rereader, so that's the other thing that's kind of interesting here. So this is Ali Smith's Seasonal Quartet. It's the first book in that series. I'm hoping the glare is not too bad. It's got this plastic cover here. So let me just kind of angle it away just in case. And so Autumn is the first one in this 4-book quartet, the Seasonal Quartet. And it's done by season. And it's also done kind of in the moment. So it's set in Britain during the Brexit, the shenanigans, let's use that word. And unlike most authors who write about something that has happened in the past, this is very much of its time. So it's very much in this particular moment when she's writing the book. It's essentially the story of 2 people, Daniel, who's an older man, and Elizabeth, who's a younger woman, and their relationship. It's platonic, but they meet when Elizabeth is really young, and then kind of we go flashback forward and back between the lives of these 2 people and how they intertwine, set in this Brexit era. Her writing is beautiful. There are sections in here, there are chapters in here that would make wonderful short stories. But the book as a whole, I had the same feeling I had last time, is I feel like I'm missing something, or I'm not smart enough to read an Ali Smith book. Like, I feel like I should have taken a prerequisite course before I read this one, because there are references to cultural events as well as art and literature that I just did not know or don't know about. And so I kind of feel like there's things I'm missing. Now, I'm reading this time around with a group of people. Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'll leave a link to her channel down below, is doing kind of a group readathon where we read the 4 Ali Smith books in this Seasonal Quartet, one after the other. So December selection was this one, and we'll be done with the whole quartet at the end of March. So I just started I picked up the next one in the series Winter today. So, like I said, the pieces that are well written, I mean, it's beautifully written, don't get me wrong, but there's no narrative drive here. So it feels like a dream sequence, some of which beautifully written, and some of it I'm like, I'm not sure what this is doing in the book. So I gave this 3.5 stars, which is the same rating I gave it last time around, although I did enjoy the reading with a group of people much better, because smarter people than me tell me what the metaphor means, or why this is in this section. So that's kind of always nice. So 3.5 stars. And again, like I said, I am convinced I'm going to love her. I'm hoping that as I get through the whole quartet, I'll understand more of her writing style and how she writes. So if you're in the mood for a novel with a through line or a plot-driven novel, this is not for you. If you're more into experimental, kind of dreamlike sequences, beautiful writing, pick this up and see what you think about it. I'd love to know. So the final book in this stash is a YA comic called What We Don't Talk About by Charlot Kristensen. Now, this is an interesting one because I like the art. You can take a look. It's kind of got this really moody colors, and it's beautiful. It's the story of two young people, Farai and Adam, who've been in a relationship for a couple of years. And Farai finally convinces Adam to take her home to meet his parents, and things ensue from there. They're an interracial couple. Now, one of the things is that when we talk about racism, we often talk and hear about the big R racism stuff, okay? And as a person of color, we are unseen, unheard, dismissed on a daily basis in ways both big and small. And so what I really liked about this comic is that it takes those issues and puts it in an intimate relationship way of exploring those issues, which I find to be really effective. Now, it's a YA book, so it doesn't dive and plumb the depths that I typically tend to like when big meaty themes are being explored. But it's I think really well done for this particular age group. It's asking those questions, right? Do we notice that we have prejudices and speak about people in a certain way? And what's our response when that happens, especially when it happens within our families? So I liked that exploration in an intimate relationship context. I was rooting for this couple the entire way. As an adult reader, I kind of knew how this was going to end, but still, I really enjoyed this one. And if you like reading YA comics, especially with themes that have, it's not as pat as some of the other ones, I would certainly give this a try. And I gave this one 4 stars. So that's my current wrap up of my recent reads. If you have read any of them, I'd love to hear your thoughts about them, whether you like them or did not like them. If you have any other books on Lighthouses you'd recommend, please let me know. If you're an Ali Smith fan and have found that your appreciation of her work gets better as you read further into her works, please do let me know, because I'm looking for some encouragement there. That's what I have for you today. Would love to engage with you in the comment section down below. Until I talk to you next time, happy reading. Bye.